It's going to be another video on the Osama bin Laden stuff, because I think there's still some really important questions that need to be answered. I'm going to try and go into a bit more detail about those and some of the problems that I've got with the contradictions that we've seen coming from the official statements. I've watched all the press conferences, and that's where some of my problems come from as well. One thing quickly I've got to get off, say right off the bat, is that I do not think that Osama bin Laden is still alive. Not at all. Federalist Films compared me to Alex Jones in this latest video on this topic, which I thought was a bit unfair. Yes, Alex Jones is a fucking nutbar, but I'm asking some valid questions here. I just don't think that it's healthy to accept as read what we are being given in terms of information from US government on this, especially when they've got such a bad track record for telling the truth, especially in wartime as well. So yes, I don't think he's still alive, but I do think there's a case to be made that he might have died a long time ago. Now, there was reports that he may have been very, very ill from kidney failure, may have even died from kidney failure. Now, this came from a statement, an interview given by the ex-president of Pakistan, Musharraf, in an interview that he did with CNN. He said that the Saudi-born militant has escaped capture. This is in 2002. But Musharraf said that bin Laden, who had kidney problems, probably died after being deprived of his regular dialysis treatment to clean out his bloodstream. He said, "I give the highest priority now, to be frank, that he's dead, for the reason that he's a patient, he's a kidney patient." Now, of course, there was contradictory reports coming out against that as well, denying that as well, and that kind of thing. But when this information was presented to the US State Department at the time, they said this: "We just don't know. I don't think that the president would view that as an unwelcome event, but the fact of the matter is, we do not know," said Ari Fleischer, spokesman for President George Bush. So there's certainly some confusion over there. It's possible he could have died years ago in 2002 or soon after from kidney failure. I mean, that would go some way to explaining maybe why we've not seen anything of him. He's been completely silent for many years. There's been some audio tapes allegedly being him, although we don't know if they were current, as well as some of the videos that were released. There's nothing specifically relating to current events for many, many years. So this is where my concern is, and this is what I'm questioning, okay? And I think it's healthy to do that as well, especially given the lack of information and clarity that we've seen on this situation. And before I get into anything more substantial, I just want to take a quick look at the statement that was given by President Obama on TV recently when asked, "Have you seen the pictures?"
Did you see the pictures?
Yes.
What was your reaction when you saw them?
It was him.
So for me there, and I don't know if I'm just being overcritical here, but I think there was far too much nodding going on there in that clip. Again, not a substantial observation, but just something that I picked up on. That, yeah, he was asked, you know, "Have you seen the pictures?" "Yes." And then, "What was your very first reaction?" "It was him." Like that. I mean, for a start, the fact that his immediate reaction on seeing this picture was "it was him," this kind of contradicts one of the lines that's been coming out of the State Department, is that it was just such a gruesome picture that we couldn't release it. So if his face was completely mangled, I don't think that really, you know, gels with this idea that Obama's very first reaction was "it was him." Definitely. Also, why are they so keen to sell us the idea that DNA testing was done? Why are they needing to use that to bolster this claim that it's definitely him? If the visual recognition was immediately obvious it was him, I don't quite understand why they would make so much deal of the DNA testing as well, which is something that's a bit suspect as well, because we haven't been given the times. It would be helpful if we were, because I actually phoned up a DNA testing laboratory today. I'll put a link in the low bar for everything that I'm referring to in this video, and I asked them, how long does these DNA tests take? Not how long are they, you know, do you take to get them back, but how long does the actual process itself take? And I was told a minimum of 6 hours. So this, we have to be, we're being told that, you know, after the 40-minute raid that occurred, that after he was taken away, that DNA testing was done within 6 hours and confirmed on the field. Now it's important that DNA swabs and testing is not contaminated at all, and actually you can't, I was told by this person at this DNA facility that I'll link to, that you can't do a swab on a dead person. It would have to be either bone tissue or flesh to do that, but I guess that's not a problem. But yes, it's 6 hours minimum. So we haven't been given the time, so we can't corroborate whether or not they've been able to do that at all. There's also been some contradictory statements made as to what happened after they left the scene. We heard initially that first of all they went into Afghanistan and then out to the burial at sea. But in the press conference it was explicitly stated that straight after leaving the compound they went straight to the SS Carl Vincent in the North Arabian Sea for the burial. Now, there is certainly visual evidence that's available, it has been documented visually, that's not been denied at all. So why are we not seeing anything at all? Why are we not even seeing pictures of the burial? One of the arguments that's been made is that they don't want to release the pictures. In fact, the main argument that's been given about why the pictures aren't being released is because they don't want to incite any kind of backlash from the Muslim community. They don't want to turn him into a martyr. They don't want to be disrespectful. But if you don't want to be disrespectful, you want to be shown to be respectful, then surely releasing a video of this burial at sea that was apparently handled so respectfully, that would be a good thing to show that they definitely went through the process of the Muslim rights and all this kind of thing. But I'll speak a bit more of that in a bit. So who else has apparently seen these pictures? Well, one person is Mike Rogers. Now, but he's also a guy who's openly called for the execution of Bradley Manning. This is a man who is yet to be tried, let alone convicted. He's also a man that bragged in assisting to create the Patriot Act, which gives law enforcement the tools necessary for invading the privacy of any citizen, removing the most basic rights guaranteed them under the Constitution. Rogers also lied about Medicare. Saying that under Section 102, people will lose both private healthcare and Medicare. Links in the low bar to show why that isn't true also. So again, I'm not really going to be trusting just on hearsay that yes, we've seen the pictures, it's all fine, don't worry about it. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. But there has been some flip-flopping over this as to why they're not going to release it. First, we were told that it's too gruesome a picture. Again, that's kind of contradicted by Obama's apparent immediate reaction was that it's definitely him. If there was such a mess made of his face, would that really be his first reaction? I'm not sure. But again, not really a substantial argument, but we can forget about that because now the official line for why we're not going to get these pictures is that they don't want to inflame public opinion in the Middle East. Again, that kind of doesn't make any sense to me because surely the very fact of our involvement in the Middle East, the killing of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of civilians and otherwise in the Middle East over the last 10, 20 years is going to be something that is going to inflame public opinion in the Middle East. It's certainly our involvement there that inspired such things as the World Trade Center attacks. So releasing a picture is not something that's going to make any real difference to the opinion in the Middle East of America and Western forces. So I just think that's a really weak argument. So Obama himself said that's not what we do. That is completely false. As we've seen in the past, for one, there was Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, who was presented in a quite fetching gold frame to the press after he was killed, a known terrorist. It also was done with Saddam Hussein's sons, Uday and Qusay. Those photos were released by the Bush administration, and we've seen it happen in the past. So certainly these have happened. We've released pictures of dead, known insurgents, terrorists, enemies of the state, this kind of thing. So that's not true. Also, this idea that you don't want to inflame public opinion is not going to be changed by the release of a picture. They don't have control over the general media, as we can see from this clip from Jimmy Kimmel.
To avoid ruffling turbans, the burial was done with strict adherence to Islamic custom. The body was taken by a U.S. military ship, and Osama bin Laden got his first bath in almost 10 years. This could be the best Shark Week ever if they find that.
So this idea that they don't inflame public opinion in the Middle East is surely contradicted by the glorious scenes of celebration that we saw outside the White House that was so proudly displayed all across the world when we saw people celebrating the death of bin Laden. That's enough surely to incite public opinion in a negative way. Also, it's contradicted by this photo that was released of Saddam Hussein. Certainly undignified, certainly something that was certainly, again, not respectful of the Muslim community. So it's just this argument does not hold up given what's happened with this situation and what's happened in the past as well. But this decision now to not release any visual information whatsoever about any part of this operation is completely in contradiction to a statement that was provided by CIA Director Pinata, who said that it's not a question of if but when these pictures will be released. So they've actually gone back on that. Now, there's been some fake pictures released. You probably haven't seen the fake picture that I'm going to link to, though. Now, this is a picture that shows a faked picture of Osama bin Laden with a bullet wound that was caused by a 7.62 round. Now, this is a round that it's been speculated was used in that raid. It's not been officially stated in the press conferences, but it is something that was stated by Richard Clarke, ex-State Department for both Bush administrations and the Clinton administrations. He stated that a 7.62 round was shot and he was hit above the left eye. There's also contradictory reports that say that he was shot in the left side of the head. But yeah, Richard Clarke said a 7.62 round was used and he was hit above the left eye. Now, I've had a look for the kind of injury wounds that you can expect to see from a 7.62 round, and they are pretty bloody gruesome. Again, I can't include them in this video. I'll put links in the low bar. And if you can look at that, with the mocked up picture that we can see there is an example of how much damage will be done by those kind of rounds. If it's above the left eye, if it was in the forehead, which is what we've been hearing, then certainly yes, you would still be able to identify the face of a bin Laden, and that would go somewhere to explain why Obama's statement that it was definitely him, despite the fact that it is a gruesome wound, could certainly be consistent. But it wouldn't be very difficult to just, you know, edit out or censor the injured part. If he was hit above the left eye, basically in the forehead, basically this part, it would be quite easy just to censor out this part if it's gruesome and you can see the face to recognize it was him. And again, you know, I mean, I'm also not really going to believe that there weren't any images or video feeds of the raid leading up to his shot, his killing. So why can we not see that? And why can we not see the burial at sea? We haven't seen anything at all. I just don't think that's good enough. Now, in terms of the raid, now another unsatisfactory answer that was given in the press conferences was when asked who was firing back at the SEALs. The answer that was given was that we're not going to discuss operational details. Now, I don't understand how answering who was firing back gives anything away about operational details. So again, I'm going to link to the press conferences. Take your time to have a look at them, make your own minds up. I mean, there's certainly a lot of just inadequate answers. For example, they were asked, was bin Laden's wife questioned? He said, I'm not aware. Surely I would have thought that you'd be aware if these questions had been asked of the people apprehended. Lots of details missing regarding to who was there, who was apprehended, who was questioned, who was killed. Lots of details missing. I understand that, yes, giving away operational details would be not a good idea for them, but I don't see how that is compromised by answering who was shooting back. Also, there's the question of whether or not they would have apprehended him. Now, the official line is that, yes, if he would have surrendered, they certainly would have apprehended rather than killed on sight. That was certainly an option that they would have considered. But again, this is contradicted by a lot of accounts that are coming out that basically he was shot on sight. He wasn't given any time. He certainly wasn't armed. That's not in dispute. He was not armed, but apparently, even though he was not armed, to Osama bin Laden on his own was giving enough of a problem that a group of highly trained Navy SEALs had no option other than to kill him in the head. So I just think that's really weak. I think it would be fools to accept that explanation that there was no other option. I think that Federalist Films give a really good explanation as to why killing him on sight was a better idea. Now, he's going to have the freedom to be more honest about this kind of thing. It's not something that the State Department can just come out balls out and say, yeah, we killed him because we don't want any problems in court. Okay, so yeah, watch Federalist Films video for a good idea of why killing him on sight would have been working to the US's advantage. But I think that's it for this video. I know there's a lot more to get through, but I don't want this to be too long. So yeah, that's it. I'll speak to you later. Bye bye.